Baskar. Thank you so much for joining us on the road less traveled. I was going to say the world less traveled, but I guess in today's world, the world is also small. But really, the idea, like I was telling you earlier, is to, through these conversations, explore entrepreneurial ways of being, if not an entrepreneur's journey, and eventually inspire India to be more entrepreneurial. So thank you for being here, and I'm excited to learn more about your road less traveled.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. So more than happy to kind of talk to you folks and share whatever insights that might be helpful for everybody else. Thank you very much for hosting me here.
Let's start like I do with all my guests. Let's visit Baskar at age 10.
Okay.
Now, if we were to meet Baskar at age 10, would I meet an entrepreneurial, risk-taking, innovating child who already had some seeds of being an entrepreneur? Or that was a completely different time and that's a muscle you've built? So take us back to age 10.
No, I think, again, if I look at it at age 10, I think it was more of an unconscious part of my life, the way I look at it. I don't think I had a clue of what I wanted to do in life, for sure. More importantly, was interested in sports and not in education as much, but sports. School was always a big challenge. It was always, I hated school, actually, technically.
Like a lot of us.
So school was not the place I wanted to go, but wanted to do a lot of sports. I was an athlete from a very early age. So in that sense, that's what I can even recollect in my life of what I think at 10. I don't think I had an idea of what I'm going to do. So I don't think entrepreneurship ever came into my journey. But having said that, the first thing I think I remember maybe about 10, 12 years when we were there, I think I have a younger brother, 18 months younger to me. So pretty much we were friends together to some extent and even continue to be friends today. So we started a small business. Again, it was not of an entrepreneur. It was primarily selling fishes. So we used to go to the local lake somewhere nearby, pick some small, what they call the guppies, small fishes.
Yeah. I know that.
We used to bring it back, put it in a bottle and kind of grow them up and then actually used to sell it for some 10 paisa or 20 paisa.
Hey, that's as much as an entrepreneurial venture as any other. At age 10, 12. Yeah. Where was this though, Baskar?
This was in Coimbatore. So actually in Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu is where we were growing. Classic middle-class families, kind of father a salesperson, mother a teacher. So classic middle-class family, but this is fun. Both of us used to go pick some fishes. So you got a free cost of supply and then you actually got to sell everything.
Did you manage to make some pocket money from it?
Yeah. That's the way we used to earn our monies in some sense. That was a pocket money for us. So we used to kind of grow them and in those days, boost bottles, right? So it was fun, but again, absolutely.
So it was early success. If you get your pocket money from a business venture that's legitimate entrepreneur to me. But
that's where it started, right? To some extent. But again, I don't think it was like more mindless and fun. Rather, it was fun, right? And that's what it was.
Let's move a few years ahead.
Right.
Tell me about, you've just finished college. What happened? What were your ambitions and aspirations at that point?
So to look at it largely, I think one of the biggest turning points for me in my life was, I think, in the 11th and 12th grade, when I was exposed to computers. I think none of us looked at computers. In 11th grade, I remember going to a computer lab. And the first time when I touched the computer, then you felt that whole feel of magic, if you will, right? And that, I think, was for a couple of reasons. And again, I'm a dyslexic. So I was born with, I'm a southpaw as well as a dyslexic. So the biggest challenge there was, I was sloppy with my hands. So I couldn't do much about it with my hands, including tying shoelaces to putting on your collar buttons to everything, right? Everything was a big challenge to some extent. And here was a computer which kind of you could instruct it in a particular fashion where your mind and the computers were connected to each other through just a keyboard. And you can actually create new magical experiences. I think that was fundamentally a big aha moment, if you will. And that was, if I look at it, that's the first love for me. And it just kind of caught my attention first time. And it continues to keep me grappled with that. That was a big turning point for me personally, right?
But you did follow the conventional route of a job?
No, okay. So this is okay. This is I'm talking about 11th grade, 12th grade when I was in school, right?
Yeah.
So in that time, I think that was the seed of an entrepreneurship for me personally. Sandhya. Again, to look at it, in my 12th grade, I was so obsessed with computers, but my parents couldn't afford a computer. So I actually worked with a chartered accountant whose home, they had a computer at home, which is like a big thing in those days. And for me, it was like, okay. So we did a deal where I helped them build a financial software which we actually sold together. So I was a partner in one of the businesses. So we kind of created a small business, which is a financial accounting business. That they were the chartered accountant, domain experts. I was the sort of the programmer to that extent. So we started really building things together in my 12th grade. So a lot of my 12th standard was spent on computers, where every night, 4 nights I have to do with the programming for them, and one night is free for myself, which is like that's a great deal for me personally. So that's the way I started my entrepreneurial journey. So we used to sell software at about 5,000 rupees a software license and all of that. About 12th grade and my first year in college and others, I was actually running a small company. Obviously, I was just a programmer in that company, but doing that job. That was my first stint with entrepreneurship, if you will.
I want to ask you though, I'm curious, this time when you were in your 11th and 12th grade and you worked with a chartered accountant company and you created the software, did you think of yourself as an entrepreneur at that time, or was that just something you were excited about, you were interested, and you were tinkering?
No, it was primarily, I don't think more than entrepreneurship. I think it was really, hey, something you can do with software. And I think it was extremely liberating, if you will. I don't think I was thinking about entrepreneurship as an option or any of those. It was just fun. It was nice. It was something
it was your passion.
It was my passion, right? It was just liberating, right? You can do something and feel successful about it. I think was really, really giving a kick more than anything else, right? So technically, it's almost like a drug for you. And if you like programming, that's what it was, literally, in those days, right?
What next?
So that happened. I think the fundamentally, going back to the college, end of college, for example, I remember the end of third year in my college, and I was doing computer science because that's the only thing that I thought I should learn. So it was fairly clear in my college as well. I needed to do engineering and computer science, and because I wanted to learn it. And interestingly, I had because I was a self learner, so I had learned everything before the subjects came in. Pretty much, I would have learned everything, right? That's sort of the excitement and passion that I had about the subject itself, right? In the end of third year, I remember seeing a magazine called Byte magazine, BYTE. Used to be a big magazine in those days, and I remember going to the library and opening it up, and there's the first page on the title page is Bill Gates there, and Windows 95 was launched, right? This was like, that was an amazing moment for me to kind of look at it saying, okay, a young software person could actually build a large company which can actually influence the whole world. I think that was an aha moment. At that point of time is when I decided, hey, this is what I was looking forward to. I can do good software. Possibly there's a way to kind of extend that whole idea to build companies and build kind of, that was the whole moment. Sandhya. I think to some extent, for me.
In a sense, if I was to simplify what you said, you suddenly had a role model to emulate.
Exactly, right? So when I looked at Bill Gates and said, okay, this person, how can I be that person myself? And I felt, hey, this is something that I want to go do it. Doesn't matter what it takes, let me go do it. And to an extent where I think I was too kind of, although maybe too arrogant to even go to all my college friends and said, you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and never going to go for a job.
Well, that's lovely.
So I told them, and I think I'm sure everybody's flabbergasted, saying, are you sure? What are you trying to say? I said, I don't know, but it looks like that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
so I think that's what it started for me.
I actually want to spend time on that. Are you sure? Right? This is still a time where even today,
right.
Much as if you live in the bubble of Bangalore and Gurgaon, you can imagine that everybody's thinking about entrepreneurship, but that's not true. A job is still the main aspiration. But you have seen this magazine, you suddenly see the potential of an idea and a business being married, and that triggers in you this want or desire to be an entrepreneur or to follow that path. But in typical circumstances, the natural response would be, why not a job? Did you face a lot of it? Was there a time when you were conflicted about it, or were you just so convinced it didn't matter?
So I was I think personally, I was fairly convinced, but because again, I did this mistake of going out telling everybody that I want to be an entrepreneur. Doesn't matter who you are. I used to be telling them, hey, that's what my life is all good about, right? So in that sense, a lot of I remember I was in the end of third year, and my seniors from fourth year used to come and say, Baskar, and again, they came and advised, saying, hey, you know what? You should possibly go for a job for at least a couple of years. You want to learn about how companies work, what they do, how do they do it. Yes, it's good to have programming skills and software, but there's a lot more to a business and how do you run it and all of that, right? I think that made sense to me. But even then, I was not very convinced. But I said, okay, let me look at it. And for me personally, my family's been a great support. My father was very clear. Okay, do whatever you want to do. If you want to be an entrepreneur, go ahead and do it. We don't have a problem at all, right? I think that was a big advantage for me personally.
So there is Baskar very early, more earlier than a lot of us, has decided that the entrepreneur journey is the journey for him. He had some amount of peer questioning perhaps, but support from the family.
Correct.
And you start your first venture. Tell us about those early days, the first 100 days.
Okay, so what I did, again, just to give you some bridge on that context as well, I did actually, I went to IIT Bombay for my master's in computer science. But again, I found out that I had already learned a lot of things, didn't make sense. So I packed my bags in less than 4 months, came back. And I had an open offer from Texas Instruments. So TI was a company that existed. And they said, why don't you join us? And then, so I spent about 24 months with TI, actually. Okay. That was possibly the only corporate company that I've ever worked in, right? So that's the company that I worked with. But I told them earlier, saying, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is for me a pit stop to understand and learn new things. And I'm ready to contribute whatever you folks want. The great manager who understood that. And then just about 2 years later, I quit the job pretty much on a whim, because I didn't have any other, I didn't have an idea. I didn't have co-founders. I didn't have anything. I went to my manager and said, you know what, I'm going to start a company. He said, what? I don't know. I'm going to sit down, think about what I want to do. So he was kind of saying, hey, why would you do that? It looks bullish. You are having a good job, a good salary. Go ahead, continue to be here and think about it. I said, no. That's not the way it's going to work. I want to be full-time. So one day I just dropped off and said, that's when we started our first company. So a company called ImpulseSoft, which is again, it turned out to be a wireless multimedia company, but we didn't know, I didn't know what to do at that point in time. Then I got my friends and said, okay, folks, who want to join me in this journey? First 6 months was a lonely journey because nobody wanted to join. I was the only one, fundamentally thinking through what I need to do and how to go about it. And then I had a couple of my friends join us, and Srini and Vidya.
Before we get to your friends, I want to get into, I'm trying to understand this universe, right? You quit an exciting career. You're convinced the entrepreneurship way of life is what you want, but it's still a lonely journey to begin with. What was your life in those first 6 months? Did you doubt yourself? Were you just so convinced? How long did it take to hit upon an idea?
No, I think I never, again, even today, a lot of people ask me, did you doubt? I don't think I ever thought anything outside of this journey in some sense, right? I've not been even kind of thinking in my imagination, what would I do if I'm not an entrepreneur? Because that was never crossing my mind, technically. Maybe it's also some sort of overconfidence, if you will, at that point in time, because I never felt the fear of going back at all.
It's almost like Steve Jobs saying, stay hungry, stay foolish.
I don't know, but yeah, it was like very, very natural for me. It was not like, okay, 6 months, even if it's 6 years, maybe I would have just continued to, I guess. But yeah, first 6 months was sitting down, trying to understand, learning about myself. I read a lot of books at that point in time, enjoyed some of the books to kind of read through it, to understand what others have done, more to kind of, I think that gave out a breakout time for me personally. Because it's alone time, obviously less on cash. And I remember because I had less than 2,000 rupees to spend in a month. That's all it is. So I had to really kind of tighten my belt, if you will, in terms of what I can do and what I cannot. Because from a good salaries, you are like really spending on almost a shoestring budget and then doing it. But it was fun. I think that 6 months.
Circa when?
This was 1998, 99 timeframe, right? So late 1998 and 99 timeframe is what this was happening.
And then you meet a couple of your friends.
So a couple of my friends, again, these are people from my college. So we all work kind of in this pretty much benchmates together. So we've kind of been together literally for the last 30 years that I'm talking about right now. So they were already saying, hey, okay, all of us from very similar backgrounds. They said, Baskar, okay, let's do it. And they kind of rolled their sleeves after 6 months and said, okay, let's continue. So Srini and Vidya, the other friends who joined me, again from my college, they were in tech instruments as well. So they left their jobs, and then we started our first company.
Tell me about the first 100 days of that first company. I'm trying to get into what went well, what were the challenges, what did the first 100 days of reality look like?
First 100 days was obviously, I think, like any other startup. Again, if you look at it, this is the pre-VC days. There was no venture capital, or I don't think there was concept of venture capital in 98, 99 timeframe as much as well-known aspect. So it was clearly self-funded. So even buying a computer was a challenge in terms of getting a loan for a computer. I remember was very hard in those days, right? But I think the first 100 days was formulation and trying to get what we wanted to do. Fortunately, we also got introduced to a gentleman called Sri Krishna, who eventually became our CEO for the company, for the first company, because we were all about 24, right? When we started the company, he was 35. So we wanted somebody with some gray hair to come to the company to help us out. So to that extent, I think it suited all of us to kind of come together and do it. First 100 days was really bootstrapping. How do we bootstrap a company and then get it out? Unlike these days where there was no capital and coming from families where we could not invest, largely we were looking for at least some jobs, if you look at odd jobs of software that we can actually do, to get some money so that we can invest back into the company. Fortunately for us, TI, the text instruments that we work with, I think the managers are extremely good friends. And they introduced us to a few of their contacts in the US. And I remember through a phone call, we got our first order for $10,000. And that was absolutely crazy because $10,000 could pretty much run
a lot of money those days.
A lot of money in those days, right? So pretty much we could kind of set up our office, and that was the first investments, if you will. So we could write the software for that person in less than 15 days. We got the software done because we were pretty fast and got a $10,000 check. It really made a lot of difference for us.
That almost sounds like a dream come true.
It was absolutely. It was just one phone call. The person calls and says, okay, I heard from your friends, you folks are great, you're doing good. Can you kind of help me do this? And that is absolutely one of the best things.
And you were able to deliver on time and the quality they wanted.
Absolutely, right? So that was a big deal. I think that $10,000 pretty much kind of we could kind of then now fund our computers, some office space to start off with, and then we got rolling fundamentally from there on.
Where was this office? Where was your first office?
Okay, the first office, we obviously it starts in my own apartment in Malaysia. That's where everything started. But I think we quickly moved with this $10,000 check. We moved into Indiranagar to HAL second stage.
Do you sometimes drive past and have a nostalgic moment about that?
We do. Even today, when we talk about it, a lot of our friends, when we talk about it, it's a place where it's a small 1,000 square feet apartment that we took, and then actually a house, and they had a first floor. So we picked that floor and started the whole company there. But it was fun. I think we kind of had a lot of fun in the first part of the first company that we ran. Just the amount of things that happened was interesting, exciting time.
Lovely. I want to jump from those early days of being an entrepreneur to what you're doing now. Why Amagi Media Labs? Tell me a little bit about how that idea came about and the journey with that.
Okay. So what happened, Sanjay, is basically the first company was what I call unconscious venture. I was 24, just got in for the fun of it, started building a company, and suddenly we were faced with the choice in 2005 that three multinational companies said they wanted to buy us out. And so we were like 29. We have no idea what it meant at that point of time. And somebody's ready to put a boatloads of money to buy a company, we just sold it. So I don't think we even thought what it meant at that time, right? So at 29, we had sold our first company. It was a NASDAQ.
Sorry, remind me again, Baskar, what was the first company called?
Company called Impulse Soft.
Okay, so you've sold Impulse Soft and then you're flushed with cash.
yeah, suddenly you have money. We didn't want to retire. We said, okay, we should do something in life. So we kind of, so about 2 years we were part of that transition, and then at 31 we came back again and said, okay, let's do something in our life. So we
And
need
this is the same group of people.
same three people. We came back and said, okay, let's do together. So, and again, we've been friends for life, and so that's where we started this whole thing, right? So we came back and started looking at what we wanted to do. Amagi started with obviously registering the name, so that's the easiest part of the whole thing. So we said 2008 we registered the company and said, okay, it's going to be called Amagi. We didn't know about what we wanted to do, but three things we set ourselves. We wanted to build something to disrupt the marketplace. Whatever that means, we want to go build something larger, because it was not about success from now on, because it doesn't matter for us. If it's failing or success, doesn't matter. We want to build something for the next 25 years. Can we build an institution, not something that we want to do for a 3-5 year period, like what happened. We wanted to build something for a much more longer duration. Third, I think we started off saying we want to build something in India, for India, largely driven by patriotism, if you will, as well as in some sort of travel that we've done a lot of travel in our prior company, and we said, okay, let's kind of do something in India. When the market's happening, why don't we something here? That's the core genesis of there, where we started this whole journey of Amagi. And when we looked at television, broadcasting, and media, looked exciting. We didn't know a single thing about all of this. We said, okay, this, if you don't know, that's the right place to start. So we went in and started building technologies for these places, right? That's what we did.
You're a hardcore entrepreneur, Baskar. It's so interesting to talk to you with your real entrepreneur experience. I want to talk a little bit about failure. And,
Right.
it doesn't have to be in the sense of uh, success, failure in the context of money, anything, because I think one of the things the Indian culture doesn't do well enough is to be okay with failure as being part of life and then moving on. So
So,
talk to me about, either in your early venture or now, something that you had banked on that didn't go the way you expected it to, and how you handled it, how you came around that.
okay, so I think we have littered with failures and some partial success from there. To that extent, I think there's a lot many. But I'll take some of the larger ones, which
Yeah.
actually kind of dramatically failed, right? So it's literally failed like dramatically, right? So to an extent, if you look at it, when we started Amagi, we started with the whole idea that we wanted to focus on India, as I told you. In India, we wanted to do targeted advertising. So we looked at IP, internet television, did exist. So for a year, we were spending time in 2009 trying to figure out what to do. Then we said, okay, let's do it on broadcast television. So essentially, Sandhya, the model was fairly straightforward. If you're watching a Z or a Colors or a Star or an IPL or whatever you're watching, for example, the idea was to have local advertising in every city. That was the whole idea. That means if you're sitting in Bangalore, you will see a different ad. If you're sitting in Delhi, you'll see a different ad. In Mumbai, you'll see a different ad on the same ad spot that everybody's watching. Think about
And
what
nobody else was doing that at that time.
Nobody else was doing that. Think about what was happening in the internet, but we want to do it on the broadcast because that was the biggest part of the house in 2009-10 timeframe. So it was crazy and kind of, it's a big idea. Advertisers loved it because everybody wanted to only advertise in a particular geography where they were forced to buy nationally in those days. So there was a very, very good idea. I think the idea was absolutely solid. People loved it. What we figured out over the time is multiple things happened, right? So one is when we went to the TV channels and said, this is what we're trying to do. TV channels said, hey, we love this idea, but you know what? We've never done local advertising. So you folks put the technology, which we went ahead and built the whole technology. Then they said, oh, we don't know how to sell advertising. Why don't you folks sell advertising? So we went and created advertising sales teams, which we've never done before, but we actually built sales.
It wasn't your area of expertise, but you added it on.
We added it on because we said, okay, ad sales is needed, retail sales in 100 cities. So we kind of started spreading across 100 cities. Then a lot of the advertisers came back and said, you know what, all of this is great, but we've never done TV advertising. So we don't know how to do creatives, TV creatives. So we said, okay, we actually hired creative directors from all the large agencies, created studios, and built the whole thing, right? Then they said, oh, we don't know how to do media planning. Okay, we built a media planning system internally, built teams and operations to kind of run that. Now, here was a company which started with a small technology problem. Now we were actually buying advertising inventory from large TV channels. We were going to advertisers, retail advertisers in every city and town in the country. We were putting all the technology infrastructure. We were doing the media planning. We were doing TV creatives. Eventually, we were doing the whole thing, almost like a TV channel, fundamentally.
Wow.
That was a kind of a, I think, I don't know, it was more of a bullheaded approach to going after a particular problem space. We said, we will crack this market, whatever it means. What that meant, Sandhya, was it came at a, obviously, an expensive cost and expensive energy, right? We were kind of spending, we had about 150 people company, which is going across everything from creative to software to technology. We kind of running around trying to figure out and solve problems across the whole space. We had already raised about almost $25 million that we actually spent on the company on doing all of this, right? So we had kind of raised a lot of money, which is kind of getting in and draining this whole thing. So 2010, we launched this. 2012, we were working with Z and Colors and all of them, hundreds of crores of revenue, right? It was happening, but we were also spending a lot of money. That was like buying advertising from all these channels. Yeah. These channels started looking at it saying, okay, there's a big threat that is happening in the market where there's an ad network effect that's happening. So these people started increasing the price. Because there were only four large networks in the country, they were increasing price. So by 14, 15, we were at a kind of a crossroads. Because these people are increasing price, you will never make profits because they were trying to see to it that the price is higher.
That's,
Exactly, right? So it was the point where at that point in time, we had raised money and we had $40 million of spend that's happening. Wow. I think I had less than $5 million in the bank at that point in time. Wow. We were staring at a business which is hundreds of crores of revenue that, hey, maybe this is not working at all. So we need to do something about it. So at that point of time, we decided in 2015 that we're going to move everything international. That means we will actually build technology for international markets and not do it in India.
So that was the pivot you made when things started getting out of hand?
Absolutely. Absolutely, right? That was a big pivot for everything, right? It was like a big decision. We had to really go to the board.
Were you as calm as you seem now during that phase? You look
absolutely.
like an incredibly calm person.
No, absolutely. I'm personally a very, very calm person. In fact, that's what my investor said. How were you even going through that particular process? Being so calm and simple, we never realized that it's such a big decision. It was a big decision for everybody. It was a survival decision from a company standpoint. $40 million of money has actually been spent, or maybe $35 million was spent, $5 million in the bank. And we're going to our board and saying, you know what, we're going to shut down this business, which is hundreds of crores. And we want to take a business which we're less than $1 million we were doing internationally and say, okay, that's the new business that we're going to go after. And we're going to take off all the ad sales teams. So hundreds of people had to be let go. We have to shut down our studios, creative, all of that completely, and create a new software team which will actually go after this whole thing. That was a moment, I think, where I had to raise my hands and say, you know what, we made a mistake for the last 5 years. We spent the money, but we truly believe there is an opportunity in front of us. Trust us to take the next part of the journey. I think that's the conversation, which is more, I think that is a fundamental mistake in terms of choosing a market, and it's hard at that point of time to take those calls.
I'm so glad you shared that story, Baskar. I'm sure anyone listening, I'm just marveling it because it couldn't have been half as simple as you've indicated. I mean, you didn't say simple, but the fact that you could rationally and calmly go through that. But I guess that's what makes you you. And thank you for sharing that. I am inspired by the story you just shared, but I'd like you to share an entrepreneur story, someone else's, that has inspired you.
I think lots of that. I think I've seen much of the stories. And obviously, if you look at it, what are the things that I learned actually again, Sandhya? As I started growing, one of the things is obviously Bill Gates was like the role model, right? So that's what I started off with in my college days, right? But clearly, if you look at it, I saw a couple of ways, right? Companies which actually have a first hit in their first part of the house, right? Mm-hmm. So in the first part of their journey, if they got super successful, then you can build in next generation of waves and you can build a lasting company. But here we were, the first innings was actually pretty much a washout, literally. Now you're starting a second journey. So I had to look for what I call entrepreneurs who kind of been there and done that multiple times over, where the first journeys have not been the most successful ones, but actually newer ones which actually been truly successful.
Yeah.
And I found quite a bit of different entrepreneurs who kind of gone through that journey somewhere. And that gave us the confidence that, okay, yeah, this is not the end of the world. anyway, we were trying to build it for the next 25 years. How does it matter? We will write off the first 5 years of the journey and then kickstart the next generation of what will happen. So yeah, I think that was a moment where we did read a lot of different literature across from what's happened, primarily in the Valley, quite a bit of entrepreneurs who turned around and did things. And obviously, to look at it, Steve Jobs is a classic example, right? In terms of what we could see, the first innings was pretty bad, but the second innings was extremely successful.
Resurgence, right?
Resurgence in some sense. And I think that gave us confidence that, hey, this is the reality of life. We have to take it up and then actually go after that. I think that helped a lot in terms of understanding that.
Baskar, now I want to switch tracks slightly, make it a little bit fun. I mean, I had fun even in the first part, but this is just to get to know you as a person a little more. So just a quick rapid fire. I think I know this answer to my first question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Your entrepreneur icon.
Bill Gates.
The mistake you've made, you would advise entrepreneurs starting out not to make.
Don't raise a lot of money.
Conserve is what you're saying. Yeah. Correct. According to you, the most important entrepreneurial trait?
Tenacity.
Tenacity. What's an overrated one that you hear people bandy around, but you just think it's overrated?
I think the whole idea of thinking that there's an entrepreneurial gene.
Yeah, that is, if you want to do it, go out there and do it. It's not something you're born with.
Absolutely.
5 years from now, what would you like to be doing?
A lot more. I think I'm just crossing my midlife crisis, if you will. So a lot more in terms of more social purposes that I'm trying to start to kind of invest in. So that will be my way of giving back to the community, back again.
Lovely. What's a quote? Do you have a quote that inspires you?
Quote. I think this is what I use repeatedly in all of my things is the journey is the destination somewhere. This is what I tell a lot of people. Lovely. And I do practice that as well, saying, hey, journey is the destination and don't wait for some pot of gold or success in any fashion. But today, every day is your journey, which is going to be, it should be enjoyable. As people
I love that. And now a little more fun stuff. What's your favorite book?
Good to Great.
Your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, I'm not a big movie person, so nothing really stands out ultimately. But I love Schindler's List just from the intensity of that movie. But yeah.
But does an entrepreneur who's as busy as you and kind of solving hairy, audacious problems, do you get to Netflix? Do you binge on shows?
I'm not a binge watcher, although I'm in the media business. I don't watch a lot of things, but I do watch maybe a movie a week, possibly. But
which is your favorite show or movie you've watched on Netflix?
Favorite show, I think the latest one is Rocket Boys. I liked it.
Was it good?
It was good. I think it was kind of slightly cliched, but I think it was fun to watch it. The characters were very well explicit. I think I liked that actually as more of a more jingoistic, but in a way it was interesting. I liked it.
You managed to take a break, and which is your favorite holiday destination?
Lots of places. Both me and my wife love to travel a lot, so we've gone across the globe in many different places. My favorite one is New Zealand, which is absolutely fantastic, and I think even we'd love to go back again there, right?
Thank you so much, Baskar. What I loved listening to your entire story, but I think what I'm going to end with, what you've left me with, is the journey is the destination. And thank you for sharing your road less traveled with us here. And I look forward to continuing to chat with you.
Definitely, Sandhya. Thank you very much for this opportunity.